I just left the village of Guayarcocha and I'm making my way down the mountain toward Cusco. Going to show you some cool things today. This is not a particularly remote place. People come through here all the time. You can see the trail's in pretty good shape. Mountain bicyclists use it a lot. That's something that's increased. In fact, kind of have to be careful because they come down so fast that you don't hear them until they're right on top of you. But anyway, this is a really cool hike, and there's some things I've been wanting to see for a long, long time. One of the important things are all the springs. Well, this is a closed off ravine that starts off just a little bit behind me. There are several springs along the way that pop up and provide water for pretty much everything downhill, going all the way down into Cusco itself. People have been living up in these mountains to the east of Cusco for thousands of years, long before it was Cusco and even longer before it was part of the Inca Empire. All this stuff here has only recently been plowed and started farming. The water comes down the ravine. There is a spring just above it as well. But this was all pretty much barren even before the pandemic. You have to keep your eyes out because there are all kinds of things to see along the way. Like this road that I'm on, or trail, was probably a road at one time. This retaining wall ran alongside it. It's long since gone. I had a feeling it was here because this is a perfect place for a road to go up to the site of Tambo Machai. I don't know if you could ask for a more beautiful day, but that big limestone rock is probably a waka, or basically a sacred artifact. Sometimes they're stones, sometimes they're rivers, sometimes they're mountains. They can be all kinds of things, including man-made objects. I'm really surprised I haven't seen any sheep in a while. But I do see a herd of llamas coming this way. Here in Spanish, the double L is pronounced with a Y sound, so here we just call them llamas. But gosh, there's a pretty good sized herd there. Maybe 10, give or take a little. Guy pushing them through seems to be in a bit of a hurry. Instead of going up, following the main trail, I'm going to take a lower trail that leads me down to a really, really amazing site called Chuspiyoq. Probably ought to be a little conscious of what's behind me because even though they don't look like it now, those are some fairly dark clouds for this time of year. And they don't have any rain, but there could be rain clouds coming behind them. There's another spring along here, but it's dry right now, or at least there's very little water there. Believe it or not, this rock right in front of us is the backside of an amazing site, one of my favorite places in all of the Cusco region. You're not going to believe it when I show it to you in a moment. This is the beginning of the fountains that go down into Chuspiyoq. Some of it, maybe a lot of it, has been reconstructed, but it is some fascinating, fascinating stuff. And the water motif, for lack of a better word, continues on down the valley for a considerable distance. Can you see the terraces on the side of the mountain? People who don't know any better make a big deal out of those being for, or any terraces being for agriculture. These in particular, like, I don't want to say most, but maybe most of the terraces in this region are there to keep the mountain from eroding and cascading down the hill. Down below is Chuspiyoq. Can you see the big water channel on the far side? Maybe the widest, deepest channel I've ever seen anywhere. This overhang is a really popular spot for fake guides that come up here with tourists and sometimes have fake shamans and do these fake ceremonies that tourists pay lots of money to experience, and they are absolutely meaningless. Can you see the small channel? That split the spring water, probably split off again, and that is where the water was channeled from that went to the little bath section down there below. I don't know how well you can see it, but I'll show you in a moment. This is where that channel came from. I don't know how well you can see, but there's a small hole where the water came through the wall down on the bottom up above. On the opposite side is the wide stone line channel that I showed you from way up above. Can you hear the Andean pan flute up above? I don't know if it's the same llamas, but there's a large group coming down the mountain with people. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a tourist procession, but it could be something else. Yep, they're with tourists. This is the little basin that I mentioned earlier. There is a specific channel coming in off the top of the stone on the left, and there is another opening on the right that I'll show you in a moment. Probably this was at one time full of water. Water was channeled down. It could have been for ritual baths. It's a big stone missing. It would have sealed off this wall, but you could see the drainage hole down on the lower right-hand side of your screen. In all this green section, there were buildings. Many of the walls of the buildings are still here, but they've all been piled up because over the centuries, thanks to erosion and earthquakes, they've just been reduced to rubble. As I make my way down the canyon, there's evidence of more walls here. Originally, the Incas who came up here from Cusco went around the trail that we all use today. That wall that you see there supports an Inca road up above. At one time, there likely was a spring here that contributed to the water flow, but looks like it's been out of use for a long time, so I assume it's dried up. Now, this is something I haven't heard anyone ever mention before, but I would be willing to bet that at one time, where I'm standing was part of a lake. There's a big wall up ahead that split down the middle where people come in and out. And for the longest time, I could never figure out what the point of the wall was. It's about 2.5 meters thick, if I remember. And It's just destroyed in the middle, probably a 10, 15 meter gap. There's just no point for a wall here. And then it dawned on me one day when I saw how thick it was from up above, that this wall is actually a dam. Probably the reason why that it's a little lower. Partly the wall, the higher levels were destroyed, and centuries of erosion have basically filled up a lot of this lake. 500 years of constant flowing during the wet season, you can get a lot of soil coming down here. You can even see the soil patterns where the soil slopes down as it's eroded from the mountainsides above. I've never seen a wall that comes close to being this thick. And that pretty much tells me that this was here for a very, very serious purpose. Imagine Chuspiyoq way up the valley, and just below it, a very large lake that eventually, somewhere below, there's some kind of opening where it flowed down below. You can clearly see the foundation of the wall as it connected the two sides. This was never intended to be a place where people passed through to go to Chuspiyoq. One of the things that people really make a mistake of doing is looking at things from the perspective of the present instead of trying to think of what things look like centuries before. It makes all the difference in the world, and the likelihood of misinterpreting something if you try to look at it from a modern perspective is extremely high.